On a rainy evening in the bustling heart of Chicago, the soft glow of streetlights reflected off the slick pavements. The drizzle tapped rhythmically against windows as pedestrians hurried home, umbrellas swaying in the wind. At a small, aging diner tucked away between towering office buildings, a young woman named Clara bustled between tables, serving customers with a tired but determined smile. Clara, 7 months pregnant, worked double shifts at the diner to support her 4-year-old son, Jamie, who spent most evenings coloring quietly in the corner booth. His crayons were worn down to nubs, yet his drawings were vivid, a world where every stroke expressed dreams that their current reality couldn't hold back. The bell above the diner's entrance jingled, and a man stepped in, shaking off the rain from his black leather jacket. Keanu Reeves, an unassuming figure despite his fame, had come in search of a quiet place to escape the chaos of a long day. His signature kindness and humility had brought him here, not by coincidence, but by the serendipity that often followed the truly compassionate. Keanu took a seat near the counter and observed the scene. Clara rushed between tables, balancing plates while managing the weight of her pregnancy. Her exhaustion was evident, yet she maintained a warm demeanor for every customer. Meanwhile, Jamie scribbled fervently in his notebook, his tiny hands struggling with the short crayons. A sense of familiarity tugged at Keanu's heart. He recognized the weary determination in Clara's movements and the boundless hope in Jamie's sketches. When Clara approached to take his order, Keanu offered her a kind smile. "You've got a lot on your plate tonight." Clara laughed softly, brushing a strand of damp hair from her face. "That's one way to put it. What can I get you?" "A cup of coffee, please," Keanu replied, his voice gentle. As she turned to leave, he added, "And, if it's not too much trouble, bring another set of crayons for the little artist over there." Clara paused, surprised by the request. Her eyes softened. "That's sweet of you, but we don't really have spare crayons lying around." Keanu nodded thoughtfully and sipped his coffee when it arrived. He spent the next few minutes observing Jamie's earnest creativity. Finally, he approached the boy, crouching to his level. "Hey there," Keanu said, his tone light and friendly. "What's your name?" Jamie looked up, a little shy but curious. "Jamie. I couldn't help but notice your drawings. They're amazing. What are you working on?" Jamie held up his latest creation, a vivid depiction of a cozy bakery, with shelves lined with pastries and a counter bearing a bright sign that read, "Mom's Bakery." Keanu smiled warmly. "Wow, that's incredible. Is this something you want to see one day?" Jamie nodded enthusiastically. "It's Mama's dream. She wants to make cakes and cookies and sell them. But we don't have a bakery, yet." Clara appeared, overhearing the exchange, and gently placed a hand on Jamie's shoulder. "Jamie, don't bother the nice man." "He's not bothering me," Keanu assured her. "In fact, I think he's got a real vision here." Clara smiled faintly, her tired eyes betraying her doubt. "That's kind of you to say. It's a dream, but right now, it's just about getting through each day." Keanu's expression softened. Dreams are worth holding on to, no matter how distant they might seem. Sometimes, they just need the right opportunity to take root. Before Clara could respond, a customer called for her, and she excused herself. Keanu turned back to Jamie, who was already engrossed in adding new details to his bakery scene. Keanu's mind churned with ideas. He glanced back at Clara, noticing how she leaned against the counter briefly to ease her aching back. Something about this little family struck a chord deep within him, and he knew he couldn't just walk away. The night wore on, and Keanu left the diner after a quiet meal, but not before leaving a generous tip and a note for Clara. "Your strength is inspiring. Never let go of your dreams. I'll be back." Clara read the note after closing time, her heart swelling with a mix of gratitude and curiosity. Little did she know that the stranger who sat in her booth that night was about to change her life in ways she could never imagine. The following morning, Clara couldn't shake the memory of the kind man in his note. It felt like a promise, one she didn't dare believe. She was used to doing everything on her own, and even though the gesture had warmed her heart, she convinced herself not to expect anything more. Meanwhile, Keanu, true to his word, had begun putting a plan into motion. He wasn't one to offer hollow promises, and something about Clara and Jamie's resilience had ignited a sense of purpose within him. He made a few calls, first to a friend who owned a small commercial property and then to a local non-profit that supported single mothers in pursuing entrepreneurial ventures. Days later, Keanu returned to the diner, slipping in during a quiet moment. Clara's face lit up with recognition, though she quickly masked her surprise. "You're back," she said, a mix of curiosity and nervousness in her tone. Keanu smiled warmly. "I told you I would be. I wanted to talk to you about something." Clara wiped her hands on her apron, clearly intrigued but cautious. "What about?" Keanu gestured to the seat across from him. "Do you have a few minutes to sit down?" Clara hesitated, glancing at the clock. Her shift was winding down, and Jamie was quietly coloring in his usual corner. Finally, she nodded and slid into the booth. "I couldn't stop thinking about what Jamie told me the other night," Keanu began. "About your dream of opening a bakery. Is that something you've always wanted to do?" Clara's cheeks flushed, and she gave a small, self-conscious laugh. "It's a silly idea. I used to love baking with my grandmother, and we'd talk about opening a place together someday. But life got complicated." Keanu nodded, his expression encouraging her to continue. "After Jamie was born, I had to focus on keeping a roof over our heads," she said. "Dreams don't pay the bills, you know." Keanu leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. "What if I told you that it doesn't have to stay a dream? What if there's a way to make it real?" Clara blinked, stunned into silence for a moment. "What do you mean?" Keanu pulled a folded paper from his jacket and placed it on the table. "I know someone who owns a small storefront not far from here. It's not fancy, but it's perfect for a bakery. I've also connected with a non-profit that provides grants and training for single mothers who want to start their own businesses." Clara stared at him, her emotions a mix of disbelief and hope. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I believe in you," Keanu said simply. "You've already shown so much strength, juggling everything for Jamie while still holding on to this dream. And honestly, the world could use more places that feel like home, places where people can come together over something as simple as a piece of cake." Tears welled in Clara's eyes. She glanced at Jamie, who was happily sketching away, oblivious to the life-changing conversation unfolding. "I don't even know where I'd start," she admitted. Keanu smiled. "That's the beauty of it. You don't have to figure it all out alone. The non-profit offers mentorship and workshops. They'll teach you everything from managing finances to marketing. I'm willing to cover the initial costs for the space and supplies. The rest, you'll learn along the way." Clara's hands trembled as she picked up the paper and scanned it. The address of the storefront was written neatly at the top, along with a contact number for the non-profit. It felt surreal, as if this moment were happening to someone else. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You don't have to," Keanu replied. "Just promise me one thing." "What's that?" "When you get to where you want to be, pass it on. Help someone else who needs a little push to chase their dream." Clara nodded, her resolve strengthening. "I promise." As Keanu rose to leave, Jamie ran up to him, holding out one of his drawings. It was a sketch of a bakery with a bright, welcoming sign over the door that read, "Mom's Place." "This is for you," Jamie said proudly. Keanu crouched to Jamie's level, taking the drawing with a grateful smile. "Thank you, Jamie. I'll treasure this." As he stepped out into the crisp afternoon, Keanu felt a sense of fulfillment. But his involvement wasn't over yet. He knew this was just the beginning of a journey for Clara and Jamie, and he was determined to see it through. Months passed, and Clara's life transformed in ways she could never have imagined. The non-profit Keanu had introduced her to become a lifeline, guiding her through the process of turning her dream into a reality. She learned how to budget, bake in bulk, and market her bakery to the local community. The small storefront Keanu had arranged for her was perfect. Its warm, rustic charm matched the vision Clara had cherished since childhood. With the help of volunteers, Clara painted the walls, set up cozy seating, and even installed a corner for kids to draw, just like Jamie had done so many evenings in the diner. On the day of the grand opening, the smell of freshly baked bread and cinnamon rolls wafted out onto the street. A crowd of curious locals gathered, their excitement palpable. The bright sign above the door read, "Mom's Place, a bakery full of heart." Clara stood behind the counter, her hands trembling slightly as she prepared to open the doors for the first time. Jamie, clutching a basket of cookies, beamed at her from his seat by the register. "Ready, Mama?" he asked, his voice filled with the same hope she'd seen in his drawings. "Ready," she replied, her voice steady despite the tears welling in her eyes. Just as Clara turned the sign to open, a familiar face appeared at the door, Keanu Reeves, holding a bouquet of sunflowers. "Congratulations," he said warmly, stepping inside. Clara laughed, her nerves easing at the sight of him. "You came." "Of course," Keanu replied. "I couldn't miss this." The first customers trickled in, neighbors, curious passers-by, and even some of Clara's old diner regulars. Jamie handed out cookies with pride, and the buzz of conversation quickly filled the space. Keanu lingered quietly, observing the joy that radiated through the room. When Clara approached to thank him again, he waved her off with a smile. "This is all you," he said. "I just gave you a little nudge." But Clara shook her head. "It's more than that. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. I'll never forget that." As the weeks went on, the bakery became a cornerstone of the community. Families gathered there to celebrate birthdays, friends caught up over coffee, and kids drew happily in Jamie's art corner. One afternoon, Clara found Jamie at the counter, holding a stack of colorful papers. "What's all this?" she asked. Jamie grinned. "Drawings for the wall. People started leaving them for us." Sure enough, Clara noticed a small collection of pictures, flowers, cakes, and even a few scribbled "thank you" notes, taped to the wall near the entrance. A simple, heartfelt way for the community to show its gratitude. Keanu visited occasionally, always slipping in quietly and sitting at a corner table. Clara noticed he never left without leaving a generous tip or buying cookies to share with someone outside. On one such visit, Clara brought him a plate of fresh croissants and a cup of coffee. "You always sit in the corner," she teased. "Don't you want to try the best seat in the house?" Keanu smiled, gesturing around the room. "This is the best seat. I get to watch everything you've built." Clara followed his gaze, taking in the bustling bakery. For the first time in years, she felt something unfamiliar, pride. "I want to pay it forward," Clara said suddenly, her voice firm. "The way you helped me, I want to help someone else." Keanu's smile widened. "That's the idea." And so, Clara began offering free baking classes to other single mothers in the neighborhood. She taught them how to make pastries, but more importantly, she encouraged them to dream beyond their circumstances. One day, Jamie ran up to Keanu, holding a new drawing. "Look, it's you," he said, proudly presenting a sketch of Keanu standing in front of the bakery, holding a loaf of bread. Keanu chuckled, taking the drawing. "It's perfect. I'll frame it." As he walked out of the bakery that evening, Keanu turned back for one last look. The warm glow of the windows, the laughter spilling out onto the street, and Clara's radiant smile told him everything he needed to know. Kindness, he realized, didn't just change lives, it created ripples that could transform entire communities. And with that thought, Keanu Reeves stepped into the night, ready for whatever story awaited him next.